Okay, so we're gonna go a bit about who we are, and then what I would like, we cannot truly put in print in a presentation is a little bit of implementation, which I'm sure is why David has allocated some time at the end so we can go into a Q&A sometime. So as I mentioned before, we are made Omni Inc. We are labeled chat services, as David mentioned. We are this is a fun fact, we are a 97% women company, women entrepreneurs. Our CEO is a man, but the way that we have approached it is that he's really looking into making it a women empowering company, and it's been successful. That's why Stephanie and I are here representing the whole company. So we are entrepreneurs, innovators, and marketers who obsess with delivering first-class experience as results. The way that we perform it is that everybody in our team, from the CEO to the people that are just training in entry level, everybody is allocated as the CEO of their own role. So this company culture really provides extreme ownership, and that's why the standards are maintained throughout the whole company. We bring back the human connection into social media, and the way that we do it is that we go person by person inside of our clients' social media, initiating chats. So we initiate conversations that go very much from the curiosity to from the actually wanting to know how these people ran into you. Why have these people landed in your account? How long have they been here? Was there anything that you were looking for when you were searching for me and my business? In order to increase the know, like, and trust factor, because what we have noticed throughout time is that there is such a high volume of offers out there that they are so overwhelmed by them that they are just stuck by not being able to decide. So this person who is breaking this barrier and reaching out to them to genuinely just figure out whether they would need something or not, and if they don't, just help them in any way, shape, or form that we can, it's really allowing us to create long-term connections so that if the time is not right for this person right now to buy whatever we may or may not be selling, eventually when the time comes, I would say 95% of the time, go back and say, hey, you know what? I'm ready for you because you were there for me when I wasn't. That's how we turn high touch conversations into sales. Thank you. So as I mentioned before, we work mainly with business coaches. We have recently expanded into fitness coaches as well to turn chats into sales. We work selling their coaching programs for low ticket and high ticket. We have sold all types of price points, and we have experienced how it can be sold without even calls, programs up to $6,000. This is to give a little bit of context on how much it can be aspired to generate only over chat. When the prices go up above that, what we do is that we move these people over to a sales call, and then over that sales call, we are able to generate revenues for clients of up to $150K for our clients by selling this high ticket. What we currently work and we focus on, where we thrive, I would say, is focusing on the too many issue. What is the too many issue? As David mentioned before, everybody has social media. Every business, every company, even in every service, they have social media. And there is probably way too many people in there that follow you, that comment, that nobody has had the time or have thought of, oh, maybe this person, if they were interested enough, if they were just simply asked, they would go ahead and want to buy something or just ask for something so that they can know it for later and then purchase. All right. As I mentioned before, how we do it, and then we can go into more specific details of implementations, KPIs, and goals and expectations. The way that we do it is we qualify people inside of the conversation. So as I mentioned, conversations are started from curiosity. Why are you here? How come you're following me? How come you like that post? And after we have opened up conversation, we start finding out what are these people's needs. After we have figured out their needs, then we can successfully move them over to something that is to their needs and their capacities. Let it be financial, let it be goals. So number one, we qualify and book high ticket leads, as I mentioned before. They get booked on a call. We make sure also that they show up. And if there is any additional support needed after the call to ensure that they enroll and buy, then we take care of that as well. And in the sell by chats, as I mentioned before, we've successfully closed. This is the range in which we feel we have successfully sold the most. From $1,000 to $3,500 programs. But as I mentioned, we have sold up to 6K. We have started expanding recently as our knowledge grows. In the chat solely without phone calls. All of this by nurturing them inside of the same conversation.
Can I just jump in, Carmen?
Of course.
Look, one of the things, and maybe just want to unshare your screen for 1 second. I just been drawing some things up, and I just want to highlight a couple of ideas. The first thing I want to highlight is that we use Sell by Chat. We've started with the guys, and the reason we did it is the amount of communication that needs to occur. And you touched on this, okay? Because if you can see on my screen, and I don't know if I can get this to be highlighted. Let's see how I do this. Can everyone see my screen?
We can see you, yeah. Yep.
Okay. Traditionally, when we talk about know and trust, in the old world, we could do this one-on-one. We could go to networking events. We could meet people. And what we found is that typically we ran out of time. So what our rapport building looked like was a bit more like a diamond, right, than actually the hourglass. So we'd spend a little bit of time on rapport. We'd focus all of our energy on the sales process and making sure that we had a good sales process. And then we didn't have much time for follow-up. What we realized is that rapport, especially with social media, takes a lot of time. And so if I look at the number of chats that these guys are initiating on a daily basis with people who have joined our group or have showed interest in one of our posts, what they're doing is they're just helping us build that top of funnel. Okay, so they're building the know, like, and trust. They're reaching out to people in other groups and they're saying, hey, we've got some great resources in our group, come and join us. Then the next thing they'll do is they'll ask questions. So the chats that are occurring are literally asking questions and qualifying our leads. Now, the beauty of all this is it's done as me, which means when I do meet up with people, I can jump into the chat sessions and all the information is there. So what we've done here is successfully move the rapport building side of the sale to a chat box. And it's all done through scripting. So it's all the things I would normally say. And what it does is it allows me then to get these sales calls that are very highly qualified. So the amount of effort that I need to put in at this section here in the sale is much less because by the time I get to meet and talk to someone, I know everything about them. So the thing that Carmen was talking about right there is this whole notion of volume, because people are getting inundated with marketing messages. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to snipe it. So we're using very specific conversations, which are one-line questions and answers going back and forth to build rapport over time. And these guys have done a brilliant job of doing that. So thanks. Back to your presentation.
All right, no problem. That was a great visual, Steph. Thank you. Okay, and Steph, feel free to jump in if you have something that I'm missing out on. That's why we always show up in a gang. We do appreciate going in as a tag team. This is a Bermuda Triangle, more going into the side of implementation and how this happens. This is what we call the perfect storm for sales and leads. So we, as if you can see below the triangle, we have a consistent content schedule and a community growth strategy. As I mentioned before, we work inside of social media, and every business has most likely a social media platform that they are constantly taking care of, which means that it has its content in order to nurture the people that are in there. Because we can go back and look at an airline's social media platform. They are there because they need to be present, but that doesn't mean that they are generating leads because of that. So it's that presence is what is generated with the consistent content schedule. The community growth strategy is created either by ads or just appearance, invitations, joining podcasts, but something that ensures that the community attention is being driven to the social medias of the business. And where we come in is that when these two are in place, we handle everybody that has landed, let it be organically, let it be by an ad, into the account. Because what do we have there? We have content consumers. We have people that are curious that for XYZ have followed. Let's say 50% of them have maybe followed because the content is appealing. 30% of them have followed by mistake. We have left 20% of people that most likely have followed out of curiosity into eventually doing business with that particular social media platform account owner, because going back to the example of an airline, because they want to travel with them, because they want to know more. So that is the same principle that we have seen when we go and tap into one of the account's audiences. There is people that are there for a reason, and we're there to find out. And we help with the lead leak. What does this mean? As I mentioned all the way in the beginning, there is people that will simply frontal enough, decided enough to go ahead and ask for what they want. Look for the business that you're offering, get that airplane ticket, and be decided and travel to a Caribbean trip to Venezuela. But some people simply won't. That's what we mean by small fishes. It's not that they are less important than the big fish that are trapped by the ads that are driven to a sales call, because these are just people that, as I mentioned before, are warmer and are readier and are most likely going to jump. But what happened with all of those people that saw the ad, saw that information, but are still not convinced enough? What would happen if they were to receive a message from you? The whole game would change. And now they are in touch with that person who they have been thinking about, with that business that they have been thinking about. And the likelihood of this person being reached out by your competition is very slight, because it's a very new way of marketing. And that's why whoever is doing it is being successful at their own scale, of course, but it's a very new, I would say, disruptive way of marketing, because we are literally going into people's lives and just wanting to have a conversation, which is not normal nowadays. And it's something important is, if people are not ready to buy, it's okay. There is no need to sell them anything if they aren't. So what we usually do is more of a free resource. Here is something for you. Here's an ebook. Here is the pamphlet. Here is my podcast, so that they always keep you in the back of their head. And who are they going to go back to once they are decided to go get that airline? They're going to go to the airline that messaged them and was kind enough to wonder, hey, are you planning on going on a trip soon? They're going to go back to that person. So that's how we do it, big picture.
Awesome. Fantastic. Like I mentioned, these girls are really they do girls. I won't say it again. This team are awesome. I'm not gonna kid you. It's been tricky. It's been tricky to get these guys to engage, because we've got to get the voice. But the thing that excites me is, here's the problem with marketing. The volume of marketing that people are getting right now is massive. And what we're doing is we're competing. And Google play the game, Facebook play the game, that you basically pay and you compete against your competitor for who pays the highest for a click. Now, that's all fine if you've got big pockets. But the reality is, the people that are winning out of this race is Google, right? Because they're the ones that are saying, hey, we want your competitors to come on board, because then we get more money out of either of you. What we're doing here is we've identified a way to break through the noise, okay? Because the one thing about chat is it's very personal, and it's very much about conversations. It's not about being pitchy. And everything we do with this team is focused around engaging in a conversation. And so let's imagine how this works, right? Because it took me a while to get my head around it. I'm on social media and I'm looking through, and it's my friends and my family, and I go, oh, that's a nice photo of my kids on holidays. Isn't that great? And I make a comment, great holiday. I have hobbies. And for those hobbies, I join groups. And I join groups so I get nice pictures of things like motorcycles or whatever I'm into my feed. Then on my LinkedIn, I join groups because I'm part of associations. Okay, so if there's a coaching association, I'll join that group. If I'm an accountant, I'll join that group. And then I'll have some communities. So they're people who are like-minded, so they might have the same passions as me. Okay, so all of these groups, the reason I join them is because I'm interested in these conversations. Now, what happens now is this team will say, David, these conversations, they're nice to just be topical and share information, but these are also people who you could do business with. So now let's talk about how do we engage in a process that takes them from just being a friend on Facebook with some comments to qualifying whether they're good leads. Now, the conversation starts with, hey, how you going? So thanks so much for joining our group. Tell us a bit about you. Now, it's a sales conversation. Normally, I'd do that by voice. I'd be talking to people and saying, hey, good to see you at our event. Tell me a bit about your business. And this is all happening not on the computer. So the beauty of that is that there's a lot of conversations, because if we look at the volume and I try and do it, it doesn't make any sense. Okay. Now, some people cotton onto these things, they go, hang on, this isn't David. But that's okay, because the majority of them still engaging in this conversation, knowing, well, it doesn't matter because they're asking valid questions. What do you need help with in your business? Oh, you need help with your unique selling proposition. We have a document on that. Would you like me to share it with you? No one says no when you offer help. Okay. So the magic that's occurring is we're engaging in these conversations, and you could say they're low level because it's no trust. And we're getting a lot of people that say, that's great. Thanks for sending me the free stuff, but no, I'm not interested in coming to your next step. But what happens is they leave that conversation with value, okay? And the team are really good at monitoring the status of these conversations and where they're at. But the big eye-opener for me was email. We've been using for many years. Who's got an email database on this call? Yeah. Who actively promotes their marketing to email? Few of us. Email is becoming less and less deliverable, all right? Because people now have a promotions tab, all right? And if you send too much stuff, they go, David, promotion. That's where my stuff goes. Now, I don't know about you, but when I look through my promotions tab, I look at it on bulk and I delete on bulk. I don't read every email in there anymore. So I shut the door on things that are too noisy for me. The thing with personal messaging, right? And also the team don't just work on Facebook, they work on LinkedIn and they do email as well. And they use in email what we call a spear, which is we send a very short email saying, hey, are you interested in this? Just say yes or no. People reply and then the conversation starts. So we're coming in under the radar because it doesn't look like marketing anymore. It's a conversation. And that's the magic of this. So I'm going to open up the questions. We've got about 7 minutes left in this presentation. Has anyone got any questions that they'd like to ask the team? Don?
I do. Is the questions coming from the outcomes page, or you were saying you're on other groups, or is it just purely in outcomes?
It's a great question. What we do is we do multiple things. We have an outcomes page, but we have a group. And it's called the Adaptable Business Community, okay? And the reason we use a group is that it's closed and people join it. And when they join it, we know, and there's some qualifying questions. What sort of business do you run? And then when they come into the group, they get welcomed by me. Now, it's not me, it's Stephanie and her team, okay? And the message goes out saying, welcome to the group, tell us a bit about you. So we're building a relationship as they join our group, okay? Now, typically on Facebook, when you join a group, and all you do is you start receiving the content in your feed. So what we're doing is we're using those groups as a pool, a bit like a database of email. And the analogy I use is it's like a trout farm. And if everyone knows what that means is if you don't know how to fish and you want to catch fish, you go to a trout farm. They give you a stick with a piece of a bent nail on the end of it and you put it in the water and out comes a fish. Now, to me, when we have a trout farm, which is people who are business owners in a group, in a community together, and we give them lots of content all the time, they get to see us as a good source of information. So when it comes to promoting our product or service, they're already indoctrinated into our business. Does that help, Joan? Yep, good question. Don, you had a question too.
A couple of questions, and somebody else asked too about specific social media platforms. Any differences there? Personally, I think that my target market is more on LinkedIn than on Facebook. And also that's the kind of the network that I've nurtured the most, thousands of connections, and also a company page that gets quite a bit of traction. So that's one question. And second question is, can you make the chat sound like it's coming from me, and how do you go about that?
Yeah. Carmen or Stephanie?
I would love for you, David, to let them know if you feel that the conversations are coming from you when you read them.
Yeah. So let's go with the first question. It doesn't matter if it's LinkedIn or Facebook. Okay. It doesn't matter if it's something else. The channel is the last piece of the puzzle. First piece of the puzzle is, where does my target market live in concentration? And if they're on LinkedIn, LinkedIn's slightly different. They don't have groups on there, but we have our page and we have my personal members. Okay. So we go out and friend request people. And then we go through the filter. And for example, one of our target markets is strategic alliance partners. So we're looking for accountants, we're looking for IT providers and marketing companies. And the reason we're looking for those is we do strategic alliance partnerships with those guys. So then what happens is the team, so Stephanie and Carmen will sit down and say, David, start a conversation with someone or put it into a Word document. How would you answer these questions? So we end up with this quite lengthy document, which is my standard answers, because the majority of questions are the same. Okay. So when we go in there, like if you joined me as, say we connected on LinkedIn, Don, and I'd be looking, and if my target market was IT providers, we'd say, hey, Don, you're an IT provider. Tell us a bit more about your business. Which market do you service? How many clients do you have? What's your aspirations? Where do you feel there's gaps? And as you answer those questions, you might say, David, my gap is I'm not really good at marketing. Oh, we've got a great document. Would you like to share it with? So the conversation is all about giving. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, I guess so. For everybody that I'm connected with on LinkedIn, I generally, if I don't personalize the connection request, I do personalize the response when they connect, or if somebody sends me an invitation, they always get a personalized response.
Yep.
And the same applies for the company page. When somebody follows the company page, I send them a personalized response saying, thanks for following us and if we can help, blah, blah, blah. So I guess my concern is there that you can pick up that thread and make the chat sound like give it that continuity as if it's coming from me, rather than the antithesis would be the kind of sense that it's coming from a machine, if you know what I mean.
Okay, so the short answer to that is when you say thanks for joining, if you need anything, give me a call, you've ended the conversation. Okay, so the team and I have sat down and said, what's the objective of having this person connect with me? And the objective is to bring them down a process. Okay, and the process is usually to get them into either a sales call or a presentation or a meeting or a conversation. So we're going to qualify all the way through. So rather than saying thanks for joining, now we're going to start qualifying. Can I just find out a bit more about you? Because if you're in my target market, I need to know, because then I can help you. And if you don't tell me, that's okay too. And this is where some of the conversations finish quite early, because people say, don't bother me, I'm not interested. And that's okay. But it's the volume, right? The key here is the volume, because you could do this yourself 100%, but the time it takes is heaps. Now, Nick's got his hand up. Maybe I'll get a question now, Nick. We've got a couple more minutes left.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a little bit more clarity on how exactly the chat's initiated. So, for example, Facebook has a lot of groups of people that are trying to do the service themselves that I would offer. So we mostly do partner visas for clients, people coming to Australia. And there's actual Facebook groups out there of people that support each other and ask questions. Is it a matter of going into that group and scanning through and seeing what people are talking about, potentially answering their questions? Because I sometimes do that myself. If I've got 5 minutes, I'll jump on there and answer a few questions. Yes. And I've actually got clients through doing that. So it's getting someone to do that for you. Is that essentially, but they're posing as you.
Yes.
So they're using your Facebook profile, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
But they are under very strict controls, because they only let them post. So it's an arrangement, very sort of guarded. It's a bit like if you rang my office and hi, well, Kelly, they'll act as me in terms of making some decisions. So there's two things. I'll answer them pretty quickly. One is that group is someone else's trout farm, okay, which is fine, right? You can go and fish in someone else's trout farm, but if it's privately held, they're not going to be happy if you're a competitor, okay? So the trick is to get them from that pool into your pool. They can be in both, by the way.
So start your own group is essentially what you're saying.
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Right.
And don't call it Nick Hansen's group. It has to be the problem that you solve for them. It's not about your company. So calling it Outcomes Business Group in a circle doesn't make any sense, right? That's for you. Our trout farm is called the Adaptable Business Community. And so it's for people who want to adapt their business, and that's where we start the conversation. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay. Look, I'm mindful of time. The girls, I keep saying that, I'm apologizing. The ladies, the team, awesome, right? And they do a really good job of this. They've got some great tools that they use. And I'm happy to share some of those tools if I can get them from Carmen and Stephanie. The other thing I'd like to do is make sure you walk away from this session with a couple of key strategies. So takeouts, what is the strategy? What are you going to do as a result of this conversation today? What are the action items? I'm going to suggest a couple. They've already come up, what Nick suggested. Will you start your own group in LinkedIn or in Facebook? What is your strategy to fill that group and why would people want to join it? What are you going to do to mobilize chat as part of your strategy? Are you going to have a chat with someone like Omni, or are you going to implement it yourself? What is your next step here? Because I think one of the realizations I had with this is it's an awesome way to approach a market. The question is, how are you going to do it? We've got 12 seconds for this breakout to close. So please, 1 or 2 strategy cards out of today's session. Thanks very much to Carmen and Stephanie for joining us for this session. We're going back.